What is up, peoples? Akira here. Thought that I'd give you guys, a little small sneak peek into what the channel is going to be doing within these next few months. Shadow of the Erdtree is planning on coming out in just about 2 days. It's the 19th at the time of recording, and the game is set to be released on the 21st. So that's definitely like super hype. I'm actually extremely excited for Shadow of the Erdtree DLC. I cannot tell you how desperately bad I want the new magic. With the addition of Shadow of the Erdtree, we see that as they're like, if you have not looked at any, for the sake of not being spoiled, I recommend skipping around. Further ahead in the clips, I'll be talking mostly about my opinions of the DLC moving forward. So, with Shadow of the Erdtree, essentially, I think since the game is taking a turn for like faith intelligence, if you haven't looked at any of the DLC videos, just know that in faith and intelligence are going to be like two key components going into the DLC. A lot of weapons within this dark, shadowy place primarily consist of int faith weapons. So a lot of the melee weapons are int faith. A lot of the tools and things you'll be finding in the game are going to be mostly int faith centered, which is really nice. For those of you who are new to Souls games, Elden Ring has always had a faith/intelligence hybrid, which gives you access to usually a streamlined archetype of magic, but in this game they kind of did it a little different. I know people were upset at the fact that they did not have like the shadow and then the replacement for the shadow spells or the dark spells that used to be in the Souls game for int faith was replaced with a very terrible assortment of intelligence faith spells, the best ones being the rings and the halos. You also have a couple of others that are pretty decent, but for the most part it's usually the rings, the halos, and the skulls. But with these new spells that they're going to be adding into the game, this means that chain casting, aka my build's faith/int casting hybrid build, is going to be extremely powerful. Not only are they adding a magic, like a assortment of sorceries and incantations that I'm just going to just be freely able to use, because again, if our intelligence is at 52 and our faith is at 50, there are very few spells in the game that I can't use. The goal is to use every single last one. So moving into this DLC, I'm actually extremely excited for all the new chain spell combos that we're gonna have. As you can see in the video, we're kind of like seamlessly transitioning from Bestial Sling to other spells like a Duelist Moonblade, Bestial Sling into a Duelist Moonblade being the primary one, and then you have the projectile Glintstone Ice Crag into the Rancor, Ancient Death Rancor, the Ghost, the Int Faith spell. So a lot of these chain casting is like very dependent on the situation that you're in, which means the more magic that you are capable of casting, the more situations you can handle. But you do need to like shuffle through your will appropriately to handle the impending threat that is usually a warrior blindly running forward, pressing R1. So just having an assortment of spells that are brand new to the game is going to be extremely refreshing. But of those spells, one of them in particular stands out among the crowd. If you have not guessed yet, the answer is actually the teleportation spell. It is a spell that you see used in the game a lot by a bunch of different enemies. This particular application of the spell has a blue, sort of dark blue, shadowy sparkle effect. And you see this one being used by the mage who is there protecting the carrion statue. Once you have the carrion statue, as you progress through on the storyline, you need to get to the inverted tower, where you can invert the tower using the carrion statue, and inside the tower there's a mage that teleports around, spamming glintstone sorceries at you in hopes of killing the tarnished. So it's very interesting that they gave that spell to us within the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC, and it only costs 9 FP. Now I know the people who were able to use the spell didn't really see too much use in its application as an accessory, but as a pure mage, that spell holds a lot of weight. So just to clarify the difference. Most people typically use magic as an accessory, aka your dominant hand has some sort of physical weapon of some kind, while your non-dominant hand typically has a caster or a catalyst, what the game lists them as. But very few run around with 2 catalysts. Now, that is where chain casting comes in. You are allowed to go from faith to intelligence seamlessly, because the one built-in mechanic the game has is that one spell is always allowed to be cast into another spell, aka chain casting is allowed in the game. So being able to go Bestial Sling into this brand new teleport, and as you've seen with my Faith Int casting build, the Bestial Sling with max spell speed is actually pretty obnoxious to deal with. Since the build does not have a primary attack like an R1, this sort of Bestial Sling is meant to replace the lack of R1 that everyone else has. So being able to do it into a teleportation that, if you didn't notice, it is able to travel 2 light roll distances is what it looks like. Maybe 1.5 light roll distance. People have already complained through the roof about how light rolls go too far. So the fact that there is a spell that costs 9 FP that will go almost double that distance is actually phenomenal for casters. It allows them the option to escape a lot of sneaky situations. For instance, there are lots of situations where you'll encounter people who, once they get into your face, it's very difficult to get them to back up. For instance, they just run around, crouch poke, and then they'll just follow you. Like they'll maintain the aggression by following you and repeatedly attacking you in hopes to catch you off guard and force you to do something really, really reckless so that they can just execute you right on the spot. But this is an answer to that situation for mages, because yeah, usually when mages get into that situation, it's actually death. Most people don't realize that if you ever get into the point where you're crouch poking a mage and you're just following them down, baiting all their rolls, they're definitely dead. Even if they do manage to get the chance to cast, your standard heavy attack or even jumping heavy attack will probably beat them out before the spell even gets to come out, because usual spells in this game are pretty slow. So it makes it difficult at competing with people up close in your face. But with this new teleportation, you definitely have an answer to simply just leave, which I'm so hopeful for. It is really going to mean that a lot of the warriors or people who run physical builds with physical weapons are going to need to be a bit more, we'll say, intellectual about how they choose to trap you just by closing distances. I look forward to that. For those of you who have been hearing people say, oh no, magic is going to be so terrible, casting is going to be so terrible, do not give up hope. For the true casters out there, magic is only going to get better. But for those who are using casting as just an accessory, yeah, it may be a lot harder. A lot of the new Ashes of War and a lot of just the new weapons that they're adding cover insane amounts of distances relatively easy. So it's going to make aggression extremely meta for a very long time in the early stages of Shadow of the Erdtree. I'm actually expecting an extremely aggressive rush meta where people kind of just move forward in R1 and crouch poke and baiting rolls, things of that nature. All of that is going to be happening a lot more frequently than it was in the past. That's for sure. So that pretty much covers all of my initial thoughts for the DLC. Since the DLC isn't here yet, I don't really have much else to say. Yeah, I've seen the new weapon types, but again, I typically don't really use weapons. I will say that I may give the Perfumer bottles a try only because it fits the long range pure caster build, and the Perfumers were kind of cool, all the ones that we fought in the story mode thus far. So who knows, maybe not. We'll have to see how that goes. As for the channel update, so this is also the other portion that I wanted to get into while I still have time in the video, was that the channel is primarily going to be used to make Elden Ring content, since the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC is coming so soon. I do have other things planned. I wanted to do a list of invasions and things. Those are probably going to absolutely happen, but not in the immediate future. I need to beat the DLC, gather, collect resources and materials. Faith Int Pure Caster build is a really difficult build to make. I've made it in every single Souls game thus far. The only Souls games I never played was Demon Souls and I believe Dark Souls 1. I never played those two, but I did play 2, 3, and of course Elden Ring. And in each of those games, I have always mained the Intelligence Faith hybrid Purecaster build if it was, like, you know, plausible. Most of their games it wasn't. This was the first game that actually allowed me the option. But aside from Shadow of the Erdtree, since so many hero shooters are going to be announced and coming out soon, I thought that I'd give you guys updates on all the new games that I would be playing in the future. So after Shadow of the Erdtree comes out and I'm done and content with all the content, I'm going to always continuously update it, yeah, but then my focus will be moving into the First Descendants, which comes out shortly after. For those of you who do not know, the First Descendants is a FPS hero shooter. It kind of looks a lot like Warframe. So if that's kind of your thing, then you'll definitely be able to see a lot of support content here. The game does have healers and DPS, but I'll mostly be playing the healers in that game. In most hero shooters, I usually play healers. Why? It's the closest thing to magic, and if you haven't learned yet, the thing about this channel is that we always pick magic if it is an option available to us. After that, we're going to be going into some Dragon Ball Z content. Sparking Zero is actually coming out very soon, so if there are any fighting game fans that are here, welcome. And of course, the DBZ Sparking Zero is going to, I've already pre-ordered it. I intend on streaming the game 3 days early since you have the early access content. And then shortly after Dragon Ball, there's going to be the release of Marvel Rivals as well. I feel like there's a game that I'm missing on this list that is not here, but it's definitely going to get got when it comes out. My memory is a little shoddy right now, so I'm not sure which game it is that I'm missing from the list. But Elden Ring, The First Descendants, Dear Dragon Ball, Sparking Zero, and Marvel Rivals are all going to be games that I am going to be uploading constant streams of information for, especially since I have access to do early release content. That about surmises everything in this particular video. Chain casting is amazing. The DLC adding more faith intelligent options to us gives me hope. Perhaps Mikola is the intelligence faith boss that we never got. I refuse to count Sir Gideon Ofnir the false all-knowing. There can only be one, and that was chosen by the Tarnish that killed him. So I look forward to seeing you guys in the future. Have a nice one.